were asking for me to do more videos with my notes. Hey, I really wanted to talk about the Zane Lowe interview, the Apple Music interview. I watched so many interviews with people and I'm so frustrated because I'm like, you have seven of the most interesting human beings on the planet that also happen to be in the exact same group. And this is the question you come up with. Like, there's some of them are just so dumb. And so to have somebody like Zane, who obviously does his homework, he listened to the album, which the guys love. He knows his stuff. He knows them. He's curious. He absolutely just asks the best questions, and the questions that I wish that I could ask if I, by some miracle, ever got sat down in front of them. I literally have like pages and pages of notes, and so I'm not going to be able to go into all of it. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's called BTS the Are You Wrong interview with Zane Lowe, Apple Music. Right now it's got like 2,500,000 views. He's phenomenal, and you can tell that they really like him. I thought it was really funny that that Namjoon's like, oh, welcome, thanks for coming here. Have you ever been here? And they were surprised to know that he had interviewed JK before. They were like, oh, okay. Well, granted, I mean, two of them were in the military when that happened, but it just reminded me again of my boys, my children. They don't know what the hell's going on in each other's lives. They have no clue. Like, all these men are like so busy. They have their, at the time they were in military, or they had their own solo stuff that was going on. It's just funny to me that, I think we kind of romanticize them sometimes, and we think they're just all in each other's business all the time. They're together 24 hours a day, and they're just not. And I thought it was funny that they hadn't even seen the interview. They didn't even know he'd been interviewed before. He asked this question, one that I really would love to ask. What was it like living together again? And he said it exactly how I would want to ask it, because what you're wanting to know is, what was it like knowing or having experienced living together in a 1-bedroom tiny space in the beginning, and now here you are, 15 years later, and you're walking into a mansion, right, just to make music. Like, does it dawn on you? Do you have a moment of thinking about it? Like, do you stop and go, oh my gosh, look at what we've accomplished? Do you even allow yourself to go to that place? And he kind of asked the question, and he really did not get a direct answer about that part of it. It was just like, yes, this is what we did. It was more of a technical response. So I don't know. We still don't know. We still don't know if they stand in awe and they reflect ever on where they started, and now here they are. But what you'll see, whether it's J-Hope talking or RM talking, or I think even Jen talked about it some, and Suge, of course, it seems from watching the interview and watching them with each other and the way they responded, it was never a question if they were going to come back or not. Zane specifically asked, and he's like, did you have that conversation about, do we come back? And J-Hope's like, we didn't even really have to talk about it. We just all are of the same mind. And for me, being Army, and I would think for most of you being Army, that's a really comforting thought, to know that they're just like, yeah, we were going to come back. Like, we didn't know what version of ourselves was going to come back, but of course we were going to come back. The other question that he asked, which of course we would all want to know, was, did you work on your music at all? Did you think about songs at all? Did you think about lyrics at all while you're in the military? It's always been I mean, we all know they're not allowed to work on music while in the military. They're not allowed. But, like, I always envisioned them, like, literally just laying in bed and being, like, thinking about the things that they're experiencing, and just lyrics and song ideas coming constantly. They didn't really answer the question, but I know that I saw recently an interview with J-Hope where he talks about, he was basically asked something sort of similar in a print magazine. I don't know which one. But his answer was, it was a totally different world. And we were so busy and we were focused on other things, I never thought about it. And I kind of got that impression from Suga as well in this Zane interview, because he does kind of mention, we intentionally focused on other things. We know Suga did. We know he had, the program for the children and doing different things. So I think my follow-up question would have been, which he asked and it got edited out, would be, how did not thinking about it affect you and your writing and your creative and all of that when you finally did get to come back? Did it all like flow easily? Did you just have it all in there kind of waiting to come out? Or was it a struggle to pull it back out because you were out of the routine? I think that would be my question. I loved that he really concentrated on talking to RM about, it's funny when I talk about him as a leader, he's RM, but when I talk about him otherwise, he's usually Namjoon. But he talked about being a leader. Oh, he said now it's less about leading and more about representing. Like he's the voice on behalf of the team to the company, and he's the voice maybe for interviews and stuff like that. But he doesn't feel the pressure as much of leading them, or they don't need as much direction, which I thought was really cool. Another thing that I loved that was brought up, was it J-Hope? I'm looking at a picture of them right now, trying to remember who said it. Okay, I'm going to back up just a minute because this is a mini rant. One of the things that drives me crazy about shippers is they will take glances between members, put them in slow motion, and then put romantic music behind them, and then imply a lot of shit based off of a glance. And I've always thought, having been married now for 30 years, when you are around someone a lot, all the time, you know them very well, and you can have an entire conversation with your eyes. Like I can look at my husband, he can look at me, and we know exactly what we're thinking in a room of people. We don't have to communicate. And I think it's J-Hope made that point. He just said nothing even needs to be said. RM said it. Nothing even really needs to be said. We just communicate with our eyes. We know exactly what needs to happen. And that to me shows true relationship, true teamwork, and true trust. You see it all the time on stage. You see it in interviews. You see it behind the scenes stuff. You'll see them kind of glance at each other, and it's like you just know they just read each other completely. No conversation needed to be had. They know exactly what they need to do. I love that the guys were so shocked but pleased that Zane had listened to the album. Obviously multiple times. He had favorite songs. He knew the names of the songs. He knew who produced and wrote the songs. And the guys really lit up. They lit up from that part of the interview on. Because at that point, it's like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. The other thing I love about it is, again, once they get to that point, and he's asking about the music. I mean, JK kind of goes from, through the beginning of the, interview, he's kind of doing his thing. And as soon as they started talking about the music, he's sitting straight up. I mean, he just popped right up, and he's just like all in all of them. Like as soon as they start talking about the creative process and creating the music, they light up. Yeah, I wrote JK perked up at him talking about the songs. He did, boy, he just sat right up. I also noticed with that, and Tay as well, Tay always lights up when you compliment him or when he hears some good news about what they've done. You saw it during his live the other day. Like he just loves to be complimented, and who can blame him? But they all just lit up when they heard that somebody from the outside of the company and outside of this kind of world that they were living in for such a long period of time, making this album, loved it and said wonderful things about it. They just soaked in that. And yeah, I loved seeing that. Even like Jen, who was sitting kind of quiet over on the side, like when he said he had heard the whole album, even Jen was like, it was really beautiful. And I don't remember the question, but I just wrote JK he'd mentioned being able to work freely on this album. And then he just had the hugest smile, the biggest smile on his face when he talked about that. I mean, you could just tell that this process for him was fun, which makes my heart happy. Namjoon says over and over again that military really gave perspective, that was my number one thing. That was one of my big questions, is it would have to. But I would have really wanted to dive into, can you tell me what perspectives? But then I guess it's in the music, so I just need to dive more into the lyrics too. The other thing that Namjoon says, everything he says is wise. He talks about how the personal becomes the universal. The personal experience, you realize, is also a universal experience. And that's one of the things that I said, I always say about writing the book, or why I got on TikTok and why I started telling my stories about BTS and how BTS changed my life and how much I love them, is because I don't know what it was about my life growing up, but I just knew kind of at a young age that when I experienced something personally, that since we are made to feel connection and community, that there was probably somebody else that felt and needed the same thing. And that's kind of how. And so when he said that, the personal becomes universal. I was like, I totally get that. And that just feeds my soul that you would say that. Zane basically said, Jen, you came from, it was just happenstance, basically. He was just talking about how everybody came from a different space and different backgrounds. And he asked Jen about that. And Jen I love that Jen said that due to BTS and RM, he gave RM a lot of the credit, that he felt like he was on the best path for his life. I love that. They asked about ARMY. I thought it was really interesting because Zane originally asked a question about ARMY, and ARMY is really the legacy of BTS. And the guys were like, yes, absolutely. And he was like, what, speak on ARMY. And they kind of went a different direction. And then it kind of came back to Hobie at some point. And when asked about ARMY specifically, he went directly to the moment where V cried on stage, in that moment. And then he talked about concerts. And it really made me realize that, in going back to Body, the way they communicate and connect with ARMY is in concerts. That's where they see us. That's where they experience us. And so it even makes me more thrilled that they're getting ready to do this tour, because they've been away from ARMY for so long, and that's how they connect. I think if you had to picture probably ARMY in your mind, we are just probably a mass of light, probably. Then, of course, the part that hits home and it makes me love them even more. Well, I'll just show it because it's fantastic.
Since we love each other so much, we're just here still. And the fans are there. So what is the reason that we have to stop this precious brand and the thing and the family? Because, for my rest of my life, I can't ever meet people like this, because I'm like 33. I was 15 when I first met them, but now I'm like 32 maybe. But it was my teenage, and they are really symbolizing my youth as well. Yeah. So I don't want to miss this chance, and I don't want to regret, years later, man, we had to do it again. We just shouldn't have stopped this journey. We didn't want to, do that thing like Interstellar,
After that clip, again, Hobie says, we were all on the same page. There was really no having to think about any of this. We were all on the same page. We knew we were coming back. It felt very natural. And I think that's really comforting for me personally as ARMY. And then Zane asked the question, can this be forever? Can this last forever? And Jen immediately pipes up and he's like, yeah, nothing lasts forever, but we can try, right? We can try to make it happen. And then Suga, of course, is like, oh, no, it can happen. We can do this until we're 70, 80. He's always the one that, to me, always makes me think he really, truly wants to do this forever with them. And then V makes the comment, we have to put in the effort. One of the things I love, and I think most of us love as ARMY about them, is they have worked really hard at the relationship that they have. I personally get the impression that music is really important and the dance is really important and all that stuff's really important. But just as important, I think they've put the time and the effort into building really solid relationships, both professionally and as brothers. And I think that's why they're lasting longer than most groups ever did and ever would. And then, of course, Zane ends it with telling them, music is better with you here, which is so true. And then he just says, this is a really, really special time in your life. Go enjoy it. And I'm so grateful for Zane for doing this interview, because I think he really asks a lot of what ARMY has been wondering for years. And he does it in a really beautiful, respectful way. And yeah, great interview.